Namaskar, Adab, good evening, hello, and a warm welcome to my YouTube station, Smita Sharma, journalist. The images that you just saw being live streamed on these social media platforms, they are from Kathmandu in Nepal, where disturbing situation is playing out. We have seen protests organized by Gen Zs, absolute young men, women, girls, and boys. But at that protest that was happening, and we'll tell you the reasons of as to why it was happening in just a little while from now. But the kind of images that have played out in fact, these protests and the kind of firing that has happened, it has led to several deaths at this point in time as we talk about it. Uh, Different numbers being reported, of course, from different platforms. We understand that there are at least uh, 19 people who have died. The numbers may be higher because there are hundreds who have been injured as police fired on protests that were by and large peaceful. ये तस्वीरें जो आप देख रहे हैं, ये नेपाल की राजधानी काठमांडू से है. वहां पर बहुत तनावपूर्ण माहौल इस वक्त लगातार बना हुआ है और वहां पर जो जेनजीज हैं, जो यंग लोग हैं, वो लोग प्रोटेस्ट कर रहे थे. क्यों प्रोटेस्ट कर रहे थे? आमतौर पर इस वक्त अगर आप मीडिया के हेडलाइंस को देखेंगे तो उसमें कहा जाएगा कि वो सोशल मीडिया एप्स पर जो बैन लगाया गया था उसके खिलाफ प्रदर्शन कर रहे थे. बट लेट्स जस्ट टेल यू कि वो एक सिम्टम है ऑफ अ लार्जर प्रॉब्लम. दैट वाजंट द सोल रीजन. एक बिल्डअप हो रहा था और बिल्डअप होते होते आज हमने देखा कि एक प्रेशर कुकर जैसा सिचुएशन देखने को मिला काठमांडू में, जहां शांतिपूर्ण चल रहे प्रदर्शन पर पुलिस फायरिंग हुई जिसमें कई लोगों की जान गई है. ये ज्यादातर युवा हैं. दीज आर ऑल यंग बॉयज एंड गर्ल्स. We don't exactly know the complete sequence of events, but to try and make sense of what really happened there in Kathmandu, because there's now, of course, prohibitory orders, curfew in several parts of Nepal, where we have also seen these protests now expand because people have taken to the streets. I am joined here by Ishika Thapa. Let me, in fact, bring her up on the screen. And also by Kanakmani Dikshit, who is a senior journalist. Both of them are joining me from Kathmandu. But first of all, let me in fact go to Ishika, because Ishika is a young reporter. She is also somebody. Ishika, you are a Gen Z yourself?
Yes.
Yes. So, tell us, just for the viewers who are tuning in at this point in time, what really happened today in Kathmandu? Were you there as part of the protests? Were you there to cover the events? Take us through what really happened when you were there.
Thank you. Thank you for trying to understand the situation better and bringing me in to reflect on what happened today. So I was there, I would say, as an observer and both as a protester. I'm also one of the Gen Z who wanted to speak against the institutionalized corruption and nepotism that was the primary factor for this protest. So when I was there, there was an Instagram community that organized. I would not use the word organized, but there was circulation that this protest is happening on September 8th, Monday. So that's how I also got my information. And then when we were at the protest, it was so peaceful in the beginning. A lot of them people, I was shocked by the amount of people that were there. There were so much crowds in Maitik or in Kathmandu, and this is protest not only based on Kathmandu, but it's also happening outside Kathmandu in Chitwan, Butwal, other major cities, Pokhara. So it was very peaceful. There were a bunch of young kids in their college uniform, in their school uniform, trying to get their voices and speak for at least like hope for a better Nepal. That was just the central issue that we wanted to bring to the forefront. And I think this was the first time that the younger crowd joined in to protests like this. Protest for Nepal is not something new, but the crowd was completely new. Young folks in their college uniforms, school uniforms, chanting that they demand a better government. I think it was fair until then. And the crowd, I think they walked towards the Parliament House in New Baneshwar, and then I was I had already left the protest venue when the crowd had moved further. After the first tear gas was thrown, I skipped from the venue, so I cannot say what happened after that on the ground. But whatever I've known so far is through circulation of social media videos, which is also a kind of an issue because we're also having social media bans, so it's lagging. So there is a systematic problem that people were advocating towards. But I see that a lot of international media houses, even a lot of well-known and well-popular media houses have just labeled it as a social media ban protest for Gen Zs, which is very excruciating to see because it is not only for social media ban. This is a
Hmm.
long pen stations that people are trying to put it somewhere and say we demand change. And coming here as a younger population who has to live in this country for some x amount of years for more, and migration is another problem that we're facing. So
Right.
to just ridicule it as a social media ban is really sad and excruciating when
Hmm.
there's 19 people died so far, and this is the only news that we know right now. But this number can easily increase uh, as the thing progresses. And
Ishika, before I go to Kanakda, if you could give me a sense, is there a kind of panic? I think WhatsApp is still working there, or are
Mhm.
people accessing these through VPNs? Or is there a sense of panic on the ground? Is there a fear that the number of people who have died, because there are a lot of people who are injured right now, we do not have a clear picture as to what is happening on the ground. Is there a fear that these numbers could be way higher?
I
Yeah, I
think
think.
there is panic. More than panic, I think there is extreme distress that there in the annals of modern Nepal, starting in 1950, through the period of the Panchayat, through the period of the uh, Prajatantra, that means democracy,
Democracy.
Loktantra, till the Republican period that we are in right now, never has one civic movement seen these many deaths in a matter of 3 or 4 hours. It is a tragedy of humongous proportions, and I think all of us here in Nepal are still processing it because it is unprecedented. We know what led up to the frustrations of the new generation, Gen Z, and the previous generation to that. They have not been able to speak up. Here,
Mhm.
for the first time, as Ishika said, indeed, there was a very healthy political nature to this call, meaning it was against corruption. Of course, to some extent, it was triggered also by the closure of several important social media outlets, platforms, but it was essentially a call for good governance, transparency, and lack of corruption that is pervading the inner core of Nepal's polity. So,
Hmm.
in that sense, here was a healthy call to action by the youngest group in Nepali society, becoming politicized again, in a positive way, because all of us need to be politicized. But this was away from the glare of party politics and youth wings of the political parties, etc. In fact, they were specifically asked not to attend by the organizers. And
Right.
further, the organizers seem to be making full use of social media. So there was no strong central organizing body apparently. And so in
Yeah.
that sense, it was very organic. And as Ishika says, the initial moments were indeed peaceful and very informative, but it rapidly escalated into police action. And let me tell
Mhm.
you, Smita, 19 dead, all
Hmm.
within the course of 3 hours or so, 3.5 hours,
Hmm.
and 300 wounded, 300 plus wounded, and I hear 150 plus policemen wounded. The question that we need to ask starting this afternoon, this evening, is how was it allowed to happen? How come this level of violence? And that too, when the primary participants were school children and young college children,
Hmm.
college kids. How did it happen is something we got to grapple with, and what to do about it, of course, is the next section.
Absolutely, these are horrendous in fact images that we saw. और हम लोग यहाँ दिल्ली में बैठकर जब देख रहे थे कि काठमांडू में ऐसी तस्वीरें आ रही हैं, देखिए जेनजी की प्रोटेस्ट साल के दिनों में हमने देखा है कि बांग्लादेश में किस तरीके से वहां राजनीतिक सूरत हाल बदल गई जब वहां पे युवा आए सड़कों पर प्रोटेस्ट करने के लिए। और उसके पहले श्रीलंका में हमने देखा था जब युवा प्रोटेस्टर्स आए थे फाइनेंशियल क्राइसिस को लेकर, अलग अलग मूवमेंट को किया था, उसमें पूरी की पूरी जो है सरकार आखिरकार चेंज हुई। नेपाल में जिस तरीके से हैंडल किया गया इन प्रोटेस्ट्स को, फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन इज कि किस तरीके से हैंडल किया गया? डिड द पुलिस, डिड द मिलिट्री एक्चुअली फॉलो द स्टैंडर्ड ऑपरेटिंग प्रोटोकॉल्स? Why were so many people shot? Right, seem to be shot at their head, above their waist. There are standard operating protocols. Were they tear gassed? Were they lathi charged before resorting to actually rubber bullets and pellet firings? Because many people are in fact presenting those images and tweeting them out as well. So very disturbing images. We also understand, जैसे कनकमणि दीक्षित कह रहे हैं कि कम से कम 150 खुद पुलिसकर्मियों की भी घायल होने की बात आ रही है, 300 लोग शायद जख्मी हैं, अस्पतालों में ट्रीटमेंट चल रहा है, 19 लोगों के मारे जाने की खबर है, ये संख्या और बढ़ सकता है। Ishika, coming back to you, if you could tell me, as you said, when you were going in there today, what was the mood like, when the march started? Was it one which was upbeat, where these youngsters, I'm assuming they're all college going students, were they
Mhm.
all hopeful that something positive would come out of it? What was the original plan? Where did they actually want to go?
I think the plan was to kind of go up to the parliament and have our visibility there to say that we are serious about change. Otherwise we'll not be on the ground on a Monday afternoon, right? We all have things to do, but we are giving our dedicated time and effort to this. So in the initial, like, it was all about people chanting about removing corruptions and removing, and we've seen like three politicians all around for 2 decades. And when I was growing up and now in my early 20s, these are the same folks, and all of us had one mission in mind, that we want to see a better Nepal, and we want to live here, and we want to see a change in that governance system that we have right now, which is the people in power, people in politics right now only getting wealthier, and Nepal not just being where it was whenever.
Right.
So the energy was really good in the beginning, at least for 2 hours, like while I was there. It started at Maiti Ghar, there were speeches, there were dances, people were singing, chanting, all like. And I also assumed that it was going to be really safe, because police would not do anything to a student who's wearing college uniform. That's not passed by the law, right? So in my head I was like, this is going to be really peaceful, and there won't be any violent. At least that's what I thought in the beginning, but that even it just turned out so sad. And now it's really difficult to be hopeful about anything at this point in time, because what's next? uh, what are they going to do? Where's the government? Why are they not accountable at this time? And yeah, it's a very sad situation in a way, and I really do not know how to react. Or
No, I can imagine, Ishika, there's a certain amount of shock you have absorbed. I'm glad you are safe, that you've not been shot at. लेकिन यहाँ जितने लोग थे, और इशिका जो एक बहुत जरूरी बात कह रही है, इस प्रोटेस्ट में बच्चे स्कूल यूनिफॉर्म पहनकर शामिल थे, उन लोगों पर अगर गोलियां चलाई गई हैं तो वो किसने ऑथराइज किया था? इसकी जांच होनी चाहिए, पुलिस के पूरे एक्शन की जांच होनी चाहिए। Who authorized them to fire on crowds that looked peaceful? Many of these kids were actually dressed in school uniforms. Karakmani Dikshit, as it happens in these kind of situations, all kinds of narratives start to play out in large sections of media. Somebody will try and blame it on organizers. Somebody will say that, look, these students actually tried breaking the barricade and the fences, and that's when it got ugly and rough. Do we have a clarity if it was actually all as peaceful as these students are claiming, as these youngsters are claiming, or
Well,
were there incidents?
I believe that the organizers themselves were fully committed to peaceful and genuinely committed demonstration. And as Ishika said, the first couple of hours, that is how it went. But I have this note that Ishika might want to confirm or deconfirm, depending on what
Hmm.
she knows. But the Gen Z Nepal site actually put out a note around towards the end of the second hour, I believe, or later, that it says, please exit safely and ASAP. There are too many vested groups rattling around. We successfully won the day. Let's go home today safely. So it is possible, and things are still up in the air,
Mhm.
given the mood as Ishika describes in the beginning. And suddenly some reporters have reported more of a goon like infiltration
Hmm.
when the parliament was essentially attacked. They were bringing down the fences around the and the walls around the parliament and attacking it. We can't say it, and I do not want to say anything more than what I have read just now to you. But there is a possibility that vested groups did want to take advantage of this situation of a gathering that was brought together by Gen Z, and then possibly hijacked at the fag end. But then that
Hmm.
none of that excuses the state from what it did. This state
Right.
is currently run by a government that is a coalition government. The first thing I would tell you is, at the end of today, I would say this is a failure of this so called grand coalition of the
Hmm.
Nepali Congress and the CPN UML, two largest party of Nepal, in an incongruous embrace running the government. And some of us believe that this actually is the stable government that Nepal deserves till the new elections. That is this it is that government, this coalition government of Congress, UML, the prime minister
Hmm.
from the UML, and the home minister who has just resigned, Ramesh Lekhak, from who has
Yes.
just resigned, I gather. He's from the
Hmm.
Nepali Congress. So this is a failure of the government, that regardless of what may have happened, not to and Nepal has and the Nepal police have gone, and the Nepali security forces have gone through very, very violent incidents and events of the last 2 decades. So, for them not to learn from excessive use of force during demonstrations, what you mentioned earlier, should if you
Hmm.
have to use tear gas, if you have to shoot beneath the knees, if you have to use rubber bullets, etc., we still have to understand where live bullets used. We don't know this yet, because rubber
Hmm.
bullets cannot take these many lives. So this is what I would say, that even if there was infiltration, no excuse for 19 deaths, an unprecedented affair in Nepal's modern era that I said. So certainly responsibility and accountability has to be held. Next question is, where do you go from here?
Right. Ishika, let me come back to you because, as we are being told that there's also a journalist who was in fact shot at. And, I can see that report here. We will just try and in fact pull it up in a little bit from now. But at the moment, the conversations that you're hearing, do you think that there are a lot of people who may be missing at this stage? Are families trying to figure out that whether their young children, whether their young wards were injured? What is the information system like in terms of those who are inside hospitals? Have the families got information about where these injured may be at this point in time? What about those who are dead?
I think all of the information that I've known is only through the circulation of social media. There's been papers of these people's names and their parents sitting outside the hospital waiting for their children and confirming if they've been missing or they are injured, because uh, the number of people injured are a lot. So there's a list that has been circulating, and we're also trying to push it on social media so that people can identify and kind of get in touch with their families.
As long as
uh,
that list is verified.
yeah, but I don't think so. I'm not sure if it's a verified list. It's something
Okay.
that's just been circulating on social media.
Okay, so that's the image of Shyam Shrestha. He's a Kantipur TV journalist who has been shot reportedly during the Baneshwar protest. He's undergoing treatment. We hope that he pulls through and he's safe and sound. But, Kanakmani Dikshit, if I could also bring up this FAQ, which has been put out again by the Kathmandu Post on what really happened in terms of the social media bans. Why did it happen to begin with? Can you give us a sense of the logic, the reasoning? Because I understand that some of the apps had started complying with the government notices, some had not. Some apps are working, some apps are, off ramped. What do you
Yes,
see behind this issue?
it's very important to clarify this. But before that, let me just say, Smita, there are one other thing that I'd like to get to a little later, if you have the time, which is
Sure.
what was the trigger, as I understand it, for the Generation G to call out such a uh, event, which became a spontaneous and, as Ishika said, a mass gathering in the heart of Kathmandu, and then emulated in cities all over the country. And till this evening, as we speak, there are still incidents occurring in different parts of the city. So why did this happen? One is about corruption and conspicuous consumption. If you have time, we'll talk about that. But for now, about the social media suspension, it is not really a ban. So if we can look at it with slightly cool heads, the
Hmm.
government seems to have been acting on a Supreme Court of Nepal directive saying regularize social media platforms, in particular ones such, well, they didn't mention which ones, but the big ones we all know: Facebook, WhatsApp, YouTube, etc. Regularize them so that in order to protect the public,
Hmm. Right. Correct. I think we are losing your connection. Hmm. Are you still there?
the money is being these platforms, but the government is not getting that through taxation. But that is a secondary one. The primary one seems to be related to cybersecurity. Now, on cybersecurity, on the one hand, the mainstream politicians and political parties are feeling vulnerable about
Hmm. I think we are losing the connection there, Kanakdai. I will come back to you. Let me go over to Ishika. Ishika, while we try and repatch with Kanakdai, if you could explain.
the
Kanakdai,
way
I think we're losing your connection. If you could repeat your thoughts, we lost you for a minute there, or I could come back to you if you could just reset the connection. Okay, we seem to have lost him for just a second. We will come back to him. But Ishika, give me a sense. When we talk about these apps, it's not just about scrolling reels and shorts. There is an entire digital economy for the young out there who must be making money out of, from these apps, doing stuff which is also linked to the employment issues and to the migration issues. So give us
Mhm.
your perspective, the Gen Z perspective of how they saw this decision and why it upset them so much.
Yeah, I think being upset about the ban is really natural because we've spent so much of our life online, and we also grew up with these social media apps. So it just feels like a default part of our life rather than something you go on to. It's become part of our life, right? So just, I think where the government might have missed is to push us rather an alternative to these apps, because the ban was announced and suddenly the apps were lagging. And I don't think it's a complete, there's like a complete deletion or like we can't access the apps at all. That's not the case at all. We still have connection, we still have the apps, and like we can talk, but there's also issue with like VPN, DNS, and there's a lot of ways to kind of access the app, but I think it's also, the government has been trying to register with the apps for content moderation, and so that there is better regulation for social media, because of also increasing cyber crimes. And when there is no support of the apps in Kathmandu, then these cyber crimes are not easily solved. The process takes longer because they have to visit the person there, write a letter, and then have them approved and see what kind of crime do they fit into, so that they can proceed with the regulation or laws to for that person. So not a single, like a flat out reason as to why. I think there's a lot of process and kind of layer to the situation of the
Hmm.
social media ban, but I think that's kind of secondary to what happened today. The protest, although the social media ban is definitely a catalyst for today's movements, it's not the primary agenda of the protest
Hmm.
today. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
something I'd like to emphasize
Let
on.
me bring back in Kanakmani Dikshit. Sorry, we lost you because of your internet connection. Kanakda, if you can hear me, are you there with
Yeah, I
us?
can hear you. Can you hear me? I can hear.
If you could complete your thoughts. And Ishika and me, we were also talking about the digital economy around these apps that also provides employment opportunities to many of these young who are out on the streets.
Not only the young, I think a lot of small and medium businesses in Nepal now rely uh, on social media. As I was saying before, my line gave out. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Please go ahead.
Just a minute. I'll let me. Okay.
I can
Um,
hear you.
so the government did again and again call upon the major social media platforms to come in and register. And on this, I'm willing to give the government the benefit of doubt, even though there is the lingering question whether they were doing it to control these social media apps that were giving too much voice to critics and, if you will, trolls against mainstream political parties and their leaders. I'm willing to give them a benefit of doubt that they were also trying to control cybercrime, given that Nepal being a relatively small economy, these big cyber giants making big amounts of money through the Nepali use of social media, particularly Facebook, which has massive use in Nepal, even much more than WhatsApp, and of course YouTube. They, in order to tackle a sexual crime, a cyber crime, the Nepal police will and the CIB, the Central Bureau of Investigation (CBI), will have to write letters, from what I gather from the police, to New Delhi office of Facebook or the Singapore office. They will contact the United States, and they will never. The statute of limitations will stop the police from working by the time they hear back from the United States. So, for that reason, for the sake of efficiency, it was a great idea for the great cyber, the social media platforms, to have an office and a contact point. That is all it seems that the government was asking, a contact
Hmm.
point in Nepal. And interestingly, Twitter, which was banned by the previous government, was brought back in by the current government, to its credit. I'm saying Twitter, I'm sorry. TikTok
TikTok.
was
Mm.
banned by the previous government, led by the Maoists, and put in place by the current coalition government, brought back in. So TikTok and Viber have registered and also given the name and the office and the point person, etc. But Meta, including WhatsApp and Facebook and Twitter and others, have not done so. So I do have a question. If it is okay for TikTok and Viber, why is it not okay for Meta, for example, or
Hmm.
Twitter to register? Is Nepal considered beneath their dignity to have an office in? That is a separate point which needs to be tackled some other day. I think the point, if you don't mind, Smita, we need to talk about is the core agenda behind
Hmm.
what the Generation Z was doing today. And as I think Ishika was pointing out, we should not let that um,
Yes.
be-
No,
that
so
feels
I do want
sidetracked.
to talk about it now and try and understand both from you and from Ishika. Ishika, for those watching this show from outside Nepal, explain to them when you say that as a youngster today, you are faced with so many challenges. There definitely seems to be a social inequality. There definitely seems to be this sense of injustice that people, children of ordinary families, are having to struggle to earn their bread, to get a job, while children of the leaders political class seem to be doing fairly well for themselves, studying abroad in fancy places. So take us through a sense of what really are the issues that you face today as a youngster in Nepal.
Yeah, I think the trend of this exposing of political leaders, children's and their lives. I think that's a trend on itself. That's not essential, but I think that movement really helped people reflect and ask question as to where our tax as taxpayers, where is our money going, because we do not see as development as we would hope, uh, schools, colleges, and even jobs, as now as a young adult, even finding jobs or so. And then always having this at the back of your mind of like moving abroad for education or for jobs, because you're not paid well. I think there's a lot of layered, and there's a social economic differences in based on what people choose, but also um, there's a lot of frustration that we're at the unfair side of this. And it's not only because of these wealthy politicians that are in the position right now, but they had their time, they had 2 decades to do what they could do, but still uh, in this situation we've not felt as if we're heard or understood in a way. And now we do see young politicians, like who want to talk to young people on social media and ask their opinions and ask their advice and see how can this policy go about. But these old folks who are right now in our politics, I don't think they've ever tried to meet us somewhere and decide together what's better, because I think we'll be the one living of, for as a younger generation, we are the one like leading. So when we in 10 years down the line, we don't want to be in the same situation we are right now, right? So I think there's just a lot of a lot of things basically, but yeah, I don't know.
I can sense that frustration. Sometimes you run short of words. Kanakdai, there is that entire demographic shift, the kind of age, the younger generations who are, yeah, Nepal is a young country today, younger people coming out, but your political system still remains that old system, full of accusations of corruption targeted at them. No new faces coming up. How do you read the mood of this younger generation and their frustrations today?
Is that question directed to me,
Yes,
Smita? Smita?
yes.
Oh, okay. You see, Nepal is a country so well endowed by nature, but we have been cheated by history. We're well endowed by nature in the sense that we have flowing water, there is hydropower, there is tourism as a resource because of our great mountains, there is an incredibly rich culture, but most importantly, Nepal is blessed by its demography, meaning there is no one large community, category, caste, or ethnicity. But all of this should come together to deliver a fine quality of life to the public. And and one reason it doesn't happen is the malfeasance in our political system. We will get to that because that lies at the core. But another point that we have to keep in mind when we say how badly Nepali uh, politicians have treated the country is to understand that Nepal has also been mired in political interventionism from outside the country. Having said
Hmm.
that, let's get into the malfeasance of the politicians themselves. There is no doubt about it that Nepali politicians at the highest echelons are corrupt. Number one. Number two, they are also led towards corruption because there is no party financing law in Nepal. So, by hook or by crook, the political parties, especially the leadership, have to find ways to raise money, and in raising money, they also become enticed to the money that they do raise for the party. But all of that is almost besides the point for the discussion today. Let me say that when Nepal entered the modern era in 1990, sorry, we entered the modern era in 1950, but when we entered the democratic era in 1990 till today, the media is free. And so, what would never come out in the panchayat autocratic years, the corruption in high places, now the corruption is reported by a very competent media. With all its weaknesses, the media is the reporters of the big media houses, the legacy media houses, courageous reporters are the ones who have brought out stories blow by blow, year on year about corruption. And let me list you the areas. And this is the news reporting on corruption that has seeped down into this current Gen Z, that they have now understood that Nepali polity is corrupt. The bureaucracy, the political people, the not only the political people at the national level, but right down to the village level, where we have a local government. So the stories that the Nepali media brought out just in the last 3 years. One is about massive land grabs. One is about a particular tea garden. Another is about gold smuggling. Another is about cooperatives, massive scams in cooperative companies. These are going to multiple billions of rupees. And finally, on the cherry on the top of the cake is what is known in Nepal as the fake refugee scam. In a sentence, I should tell you, Nepal, when Bhutanese refugees were resettled to Western countries, some Nepali politicians and their goons for hire promised Nepali citizens, we will make you stateless, claim that you are Bhutanese, and send you off. There was not a hope, chance in hell that they would actually be sent off to America or to Europe, but that was the scam. This also was a scam that was reported by Nepali media. So all of this built up into this mass of frustration that we all felt, and it was obviously piling up like a scab in all generations. But the explosion came from the side of Gen Z, who had nobody in, who didn't have the compunction of not speaking out. They just decided we'll go with it. And I think the trigger might have been the social media
I
closures,
mean, it
the
was the
platform
ultimate sort
closures.
of nail in the coffin that hit it.
And
Acted
I
as the
think then
catalyst.
let me just add one more point that you should know. To add to the public's understanding and the Gen Z's understanding of corruption was the conspicuous consumption of certain science or children of the topmost politicians. They were flaunting themselves using this very social media like with abandon, and all of that was coagulating and settling somewhere. That is what we saw come out today in the form of that peaceful demonstration. But again, the tragedy of today is actually the response of the state by a coalition government of our largest democratic parties. This is where we are as we speak.
जी, बहुत सारी इम्पोर्टेंट पॉइंट्स यहाँ कही जा रही हैं इशिका की तरफ से और कनकमणि दीक्षित की तरफ से। एक ज़रूरी पॉइंट है कि एक बढ़ता हुआ जब आप सोशल इनइक्वालिटी देखते हैं, जहाँ देश के जो नेतागण हैं, उनके बच्चे जाकर फैंसी ब्रांड्स अपने सोशल मीडिया पोस्ट में डाल रहे हैं कि ऐश की ज़िंदगी जी रहे हैं, अच्छी ज़िंदगी जी रहे हैं। और वहीं इशिका जैसे आपको जो टेन्स ऑफ थाउजेंड्स ऑफ यंग बच्चे हैं नेपाल में, जिन्हें लगता है कि आज एक पूरी तरीके से डिस्कनेक्ट है विद द एग्जिस्टिंग पॉलिटिकल लीडरशिप, वो उनकी आवाजों को सुन नहीं रहे हैं, वो उनकी ग्रीवेंसेस को सीरियसली नहीं ले रहे हैं, इन्हें एक एक जॉब ढूंढने के लिए मशक्कत करनी पड़ रही है और जो जॉब्स मिल रहे हैं उसमें सैलरीज नहीं है। ये कहानी आपको शायद लगेगा कि इंडिया से भी बहुत रेजोनेंस हो। ऐसे ही हालात बने थे श्रीलंका में, व्हेन पीपल एक्चुअली फोर्स्ड कि वो सड़कों पर आए और युवाओं को हमने देखा था प्रोटेस्ट किया था। बांग्लादेश में भी कुछ ऐसे ही हालात से जो है प्रोटेस्ट शुरू हुए थे। हालांकि आज बांग्लादेश की सूरत हाल काफी चिंताजनक है। पर इशिका raised a very important point. Ishika, when you said that the political system seems like they're completely deaf to what the younger generation's aspiration is all about, what you really want here. In this situation moving forward, do you think it will help if the government changes, because you will still not have new faces, new representatives? I mean, it's like a musical chair that happens in Nepal. If it's not a Prachanda, it's a KP Oli. If it's not a KP Oli, it's a Deoba. The same old faces and the same old political regime. So, do you really think that as Mr. Kanakmani Dixit informed us, that perhaps the Home Minister has resigned following the events of today? Will it help if the Prime Minister changes? Will the government changes? What do you think should be the solution moving forward?
Yeah, I think they are in a position to resign, but that's not even the solution in itself. I feel that way. But if there were like younger people representing, not even younger people, but just a leader who's self-aware enough to understand what are the needs of their people and focus more on policy level agendas rather than just funny remarks on their speeches. That's quite popular, that just to be likable and to humor the crowd. This sentiment is often there from our leaders at the moment, but I hope someone serious or someone who really want to lead the change, and it doesn't have to do anything with the age, but just their mission and vision and their hope for the country, and that they really want to see the change. That's why they are there, rather than their love for party politics or this being drunk on this power that they receive. That's very visible with our current leaders, and I think they should be able to let go of their power and position at times when situation like, even without situation like this actually, but in times like this we can only, I don't even want to be hopeful at this moment, but whatever unfolds, I hope that these people who died today, who did not have to die, they were just there to hope for a better country, and they are not there anymore. They won't see the future, and and that's very sad. And I hope that whoever comes next, or whoever leader wants to lead the nation, is a self-aware person that really wants to do something for the nation, and is a people's person, not just a person representative of a power or a party. Yeah.
There's some beautiful thoughts. You've put it out in such a profound manner, Rishika. Kanakdai, I mean, there are so many important points that she has made. It's not just about the age of the leadership, because there is no guarantee that the young Turks will not be corrupt, that fresh blood will not necessarily be into as much crony capitalism as the existing regime is. It's really about getting fresh ideas on board. It's getting people who are more conscientious and who are willing to listen to sections of society, including these young people. I mean, you have covered Nepal politics like very few others. What has been sort of the biggest impediment in any sort of fresh ideas and minds that can be looked up to, growing in that political spectrum?
I think we have been trying to. Politics in Nepal is a roller coaster in at any given time throughout the past decades. Partly because the quality of the leadership was a result of our own education system of the panchayat era. You may be against the panchayat, but you were actually studied in the schools and colleges of the panchayat era. And these are the people that still rule us at the top today. I liked what Ishika said about self aware leadership, not necessarily young or old, but theoretically, you will have more youngsters than elder people in the coming days for sure. And this tragic day today will ensure that there'll be new entrants in politics. But all of us, including Gen Z, we need to watch them. A, that they don't fall for any foreign governments' enticements, which has been a problem in Nepal since day one of our modern era. Beyond that, we have to make sure that we husband our natural resources for the sake of our people. We have to make sure that we don't have this massive population in the Khadi, in the Gulf, and in Malaysia and elsewhere, who should be home on the terraces with the families, with their children. So
Hmm.
Self-aware leaders is what we need. But Smita, one indication of how remote the current leadership has become from the public and the public's expectations is that on Saturday, the UML, the Prime Minister's party, was having a grand jamboree, and a provincial minister's jeep rushing to that jamboree, going faster than it should have, hit a young girl on a zebra crossing. Fortunately,
Hmm.
she survived, but the kind of accident that would have made you think otherwise. Anyway, it was a hit and run. Nor the driver nor the minister stopped to do anything about it. And at the venue itself, when Prime Minister was asked to comment, he said it was a samanya ghatana. Samanya
Hmm.
Gharamani, it's something that is not out of the ordinary for a hit and run by a minister from his party. I believe that this may also subliminally have triggered the anger of
Hmm.
the youngsters that came out today. So I believe in future, um, the answer, you're asking me what is the answer? I would not say so and so should resign or so and so should not, although it seems that the home minister has resigned, as he rightly should have, but that may not be enough. I would
Hmm.
very much hope that Parliament, it is an elected Parliament, it still has another 2 years to go. I'd hope that the Parliament members would no longer be the rubber stamp of their leadership, that they
Hmm.
speak up. And something new has to come out in terms of governing Nepal out of the current Parliament. That is where I would rest my case.
And I hope that there is also, as Amish Mulmi, another acclaimed author, has been tweeting and saying that Parliament should also initiate a transparent probe into what really happened today, what led to these firings that, where so many young, innocent lives have been lost today in this absolutely
Indeed.
unfortunate tragedy.
Yeah.
And,
I
just
think
in conclusion,
given that the
hmm,
coalition government of the NC and Nepali Congress and the UML CPN have proved today is the day of their failure. The tragedy of today is their failure. So the answer lies not on the streets. Streets are the place for peaceful demonstrations, like done by Gen Z in the first half of today's demonstrations. But the answer lies, frankly, in Parliament, elected.
Ishika, yeah, Ishika, what information do you have in terms of what is the situation outside of Kathmandu? We do understand in Biratnagar, in Pokhara, there were protests that happened. Does this seem like the anger, the fire is spreading at this point in time? Are things starting to get slightly under control? What is the information that's reaching you?
I think because of what we saw in Kathmandu, I think that just extends for outside Kathmandu also. But I'm sure that people are terrified than ever, because even if you have that pent up anger and frustrations, now you can't even go out in the streets because you don't know if you'll make it alive in that situation. So I think it's really difficult to say where people are at this time. But I think, yeah, there is this kind of terror among at least the people that I've spoken to, because even if you're speaking for something right and voicing your, you know this is a democratic country, and not being able to do that and your life being at stake, I think there's a lot of terror at the moment, I would say, for the people that I've spoken to, at least. Everyone's scared to get out now. You have to walk the same street that people were murdered today at the Banishar area. It's very central, and you use that way to go to different places, and now I have to walk that, and I will not be able to think about what happened today while walking that street.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's absolutely traumatic. It's horrific. Everybody's been scarred in many ways. Even if it's not an exact personal loss, people will feel like it's a personal loss, and it will take time for to even move on beyond what has happened today. Your final thoughts, Kanakmani Dikshit. What is your sense? Do you see these protests spiraling further? The Prime Minister, I understand, still hasn't made any public comment. Do you think the situation can come under control in the next 24 hours?
It'll depend on the Prime Minister and his colleague in the coalition government, the chairman of the Nepali Congress, Mr. Sherbadur Deuba. It depends on them, frankly, at this stage, because uh, it's a new reality. It's still not sunk in to me, and I think for large parts of Nepal's population, that 19 people died today. And for Nepal, that is a horrific number, and so many others wounded. All of the recriminations, all of the anger will just burst forth if the Prime Minister does not take measures that are sensitive towards the public and that also show his accountability and responsibility uh, as the Prime Minister of the coalition government.
Right. Thank you so much, both of you, for joining me here, trying to give us a perspective. Because more often than not, media outside tends to reduce everything into this one headline, just this one narrative. But there's so much more at stake here. और जैसा इशिका और कनकमणि दीक्षित ने समझाया हमें काठमांडू से, हाँ, सोशल मीडिया एप्स पर जो जिसे सस्पेंड किया गया, जिस पर प्रतिबंध लगाया गया, ये इमीडिएट ट्रिगर जरूर था इन प्रदर्शन के पीछे, लेकिन इसके पीछे लगातार एक कॉन्टेक्स्ट बन रहा था। बहुत सारे ऐसे यंग बच्चे हैं जो इन ऐप्स का इस्तेमाल कर रहे थे सरकार के भ्रष्टाचार को, सरकार के नेपोटिज्म को एक्सपोज करने के लिए, और वो चाह रहे थे कि एक बेहतर नेपाल के लिए एक समाज का गठन हो जहां जो राजनीतिक नेतृत्व है वो आज की जो युवा है, पीढ़ी है, जिनको यहाँ पे मेहनत मशक्कत करनी पड़ी है नौकरी ढूंढने के लिए, नौकरी नहीं मिलने से परिवार वालों से बहुत दूर जाकर काम करना पड़ता है, काफी दफा वो करप्शन स्कैंडल में फंस जा रहे हैं, वो काफी एम्प्लॉयमेंट स्कैंडल में फंस जा रहे हैं, दूसरे देशों में मुश्किल हालातों में काम कर रहे हैं। ये कोई गुनाह नहीं है। ये इन मांगों के साथ में सड़कों पर उतरे थे प्रोटेस्ट करने के लिए, लेकिन गोलियां चली, कम से कम 19 लोगों की जान गई है, 250 से 300 लोग जख्मी हैं, जिनमें कई पुलिस वाले भी हैं। It's truly a black day in Nepal's history, and I think it's completely beyond me how people and leaders across the world refuse to learn. Just a year and a half ago, a year and a while ago, we saw Sheikh Hasina of Bangladesh make so many mistake after mistake, where when young students were protesting for a better system, she even labeled them as Razakars or the traitors of 1971 that further fueled the anger. Similarly, here, as the Shika is saying, as Kanak Dai is saying, that when these students come out on the street to protest for a better system, and you laugh about it, you make jokes about them, you ridicule them, you definitely are adding more fuel to the fire instead of calming down the situation. But with a heavy heart, with thoughts and prayers for all of those who have lost their loved ones today, with their young children today, let's just hope that the leadership gets its acts right and things start to come under control in Nepal. Many thanks, Ishika and Kanakmani Dikshit, for joining me here.
Thank you.
And please stay safe for all of you. So that's all that I have as far as this लाइव स्ट्रीम इज कंसर्न। लेकिन आप लोग को एक बार मैं रिक्वेस्ट जरूर करना चाहूंगी कि आप अपना लाइव जो अलर्ट नोटिफिकेशन है उसे आप प्रेस करें, ताकि बेल आइकन नोटिफिकेशन, ताकि आपको अलर्ट्स मिल सके जब भी हम लाइव कंटेंट लेकर आए। और नेपाल की इस सिचुएशन को हम लगातार जो है आप लोगों तक हम पहुंचाएंगे और इसे क्लोजली हम फॉलो भी करेंगे। अभी के लिए मेरे साथ जुड़ने के लिए बहुत शुक्रिया। नमस्कार, आदाब।